I will stand on my guard and set myself on the siege works, and watch to see what he will say against me, and what I shall return on my rebuke. And Jehovah answered me and said, Write the vision and engrave it on the tablets, that he who reads it may run. Habakkuk 1 and 2.
여러분 안녕하십니까?
Happy Sabbath, everyone.
비가 참 반가운 그런 안식일입니다.
And I feel like I'm going to welcome the rain.
눈이 왔을 텐데.
If it was like last week, it would have been snowed.
비라서 다행입니다. 연말이라 우리 교회를 찾아주신 많은 분들이 계십니다.
There are many guests who's visiting us.
뵙게 되세요. 반갑고 또 지난 제가 없는 기간 동안 또 오셔서 귀한 말씀 나눠주신
And
것
welcome Pastor Cho, who also had a chance to share your message while I was away.
반갑고 고맙습니다.
Thank you.
오늘 여러분과 함께 나눌 말씀의 제목은
Today's title
질문과
is
대답.
Questions and Answers of
이름이
Habakkuk.
하박국입니다.
The name is Habakkuk.
재미있는 이름입니다.
It's an interesting name, right?
이름 같습니다.
It's
갑자기
like the name of some kind of soup.
생각이 납니다.
Suddenly the Deacon Park comes to mind.
이 퀴즈도 있습니까, 집사님?
Is there a quiz like this?
영적으로 좋은 곡 뭐 이런 거 있습니까? 없습니까? 여러분 이 하박국은요 3장으로
This book of Habakkuk is the 3 chapters, and it's one of the shortest in the Bible,
간단합니다.
and the contents are pretty simple.
하나님이 응답하시고요.
So Habakkuk
하박국이 다시
prays,
기도하고요.
the God
하나님이
responds,
응답하시고
Habakkuk prays, God
하는
responds,
것으로 이 책을
and Habakkuk
진행합니다.
prays again.
특별히 2장 전체는 하박국의
In
기도이고
particular, the chapter 2 is
3장 전체는 하박국의 기도입니다.
God's answer, and then chapter 3 is Habakkuk's prayer.
구약 성경에 있습니다.
Let's open up the Bible.
있고요. 1장입니다.
Chapter 1.
여러분께 하박국서의 내용이 뭔지 아십니까? 라고 질문 드리면
If I ask you what's the contents of the Habakkuk, can anyone
이런
answer?
내용입니다. 라고 말하기가 쉽지가 않습니다.
It's difficult to say
근데
the
사실
content is this.
꽤 유명한 성경절들이 이
But
하박국서에
there are pretty famous verses in this Habakkuk.
먼저 의인은 그 믿음으로 말미암아
But the righteous will live by his faith.
두 번째, 물이 바다를 덮음
For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea.
이것도 하박국서에 있습니다.
This is in Habakkuk as well.
부흥 집회 가면 늘 보는 플랜카드인데요. 주의 일을 수년 내에 부흥케
The Lord,
하옵소서.
I have heard your fame. I stand in awe of your needs. Renew them
비록
in our day.
무화과나무가 무성치 못하며 포도나무에 열매가 없으며
Also the
난
Habakkuk
여호와로 말미암아
3:17, 18, that I will rejoice in the Lord,
하박국서에 등장합니다. 그래서
also appears in
사실
Habakkuk.
이 하박국서에 좀 보물 같은 이 귀한 성경절들이 많이
There are many famous verses,
정말로 잘 이해하지 못하는 면서 우리가 알고 있는 것도 덜어 있는 것 같습니다.
but there are also the things that we don't really understand well.
그 안에 있는 하나님의 마음.
But today we're going to look at Habakkuk chapter 1 and 2 and look at the heart of God in them.
유명한 성경절들 역시
And also we'll look at those famous verses, understand what these verses really mean.
여러분 하박국을 연구하는 것이 중요할까요?
Is it important to study Habakkuk?
중요하니까 목사님이 질문하겠지 이렇게 생각하실 텐데 중요합니다.
And it's important.
사와 왕에 있는 한 글을 제가
There's
가져왔습니다.
a passage from Patriarchs and Prophets.
때에
The faith that strengthened Habakkuk
특별히 이 하박국이라는 이름이 딱 등장했어요. 하박국과 모든
and all the
거룩하고
holy
정직한
and the
사람들을
just
함께
in those days of deep trial
오늘날
was the same
하나님의
faith
백성을
that sustains
유지시키는
God's
믿음과
people
동일한
today.
동일한 것이다. 하박국이 가졌던 믿음이 오늘날에도
So the faith of Habakkuk
유용하지 않다.
is
유용하다라는 거예요.
sustained for God's people today.
가장 어두운 시간과
In the darkest hours, under circumstances the most forbidding, the Christian believer may keep his soul stayed upon the source of all light and power.
누구의 믿음을 가지면요? 하박국과 같은 믿음을 가지면
So if you have the faith like
아무리
Habakkuk,
어두운 환경 속에서도 뭐 할 수 있냐면 우리의 마음을 빛 가운데 머물게
we can put our heart in the light in the darkest hours. So day by day, through our faith in God, His hope and courage may be renewed. The just shall live by his faith. So this book of Habakkuk was written about 2,500 years ago. And those who study this word say that it will be full of comfort even today. So for 2,500 years, so many people have been comforted through the book of Habakkuk. Today, Sabbath to the end the year, and the next Sabbath to begin the new year, those 2 weeks, we're going to study the book of Habakkuk. And I hope that we too will receive the same comfort. So let's look at the background of Habakkuk. So the prophet Habakkuk was worked in the time of the king Josiah, and before they captured to Babylon. So the king Josiah became the king when he was 8. How old are you, Yegon? Yegon is 7. He's my son. So just 1 year older than Yegon, the king Josiah became the king. Do you want to live in the country who was ruled by this little kid? At the 8th year of King Josiah, the Bible said the King Josiah looked for God. So he was looking for God. And the 12th year, and it says, the 12th year, he purified the Judah and Jerusalem of high places. Even though he became the king at age of 8, he was able to look for God, and he was able to purify the sanctuary, and the country was getting prosperous. But unfortunately, this revival did not last long. As King Josiah died, the wave of revival rapidly diminished. The revival did not last easily. Where does the revival comes from? It comes from God, right? Even if we do all these tricks and things, it's hard to revive. So the revival did not last long. So that means God wants us to revive, right? And then it should continue, but it didn't last long. So that means that God has something else in mind, some other revival in mind than what we have in mind.
참으로 하나님을 알고 참으로
So God
하나님을 믿는
expects
사람들이
that
많이
there will be
생겨나길
many people
원하십니다.
who truly know Him and truly believe in Him.
요시아 왕이 죽었어요.
The situation of Judah has changed. The Josiah died, and the country and its people had fallen.
볼까요? 하박국의 기도 1장에
Let's look at Habakkuk chapter 1.
왜 내가 죄악을 보게 하십니까?
Why do you show me iniquity and cause me to see trouble?
왜 우리에게 폭력이 있습니까?
Why there is a
왜
violence?
갈등이 있습니까?
Why there is a
도대체
trouble?
하나님의 법은 이 땅에 어디 있습니까?
Where's your law in this world?
왜 제가 그걸 봐야 됩니까?
Why do I have to see all this?
근데 왜 이렇게 됐어요, 하나님?
What happened?
마음을 찌르고 하나님을 보게 하는 율법이
The law that pierces the heart and make you see God has ceased to do its job.
동시대의 선지자가 느꼈던 감정
There was another prophet at the same age, same time,
그리고 기록했던 글들 에레미야에서 좀 찾아
and his name is Jeremiah.
너의 눈을 들어 헐
Jeremiah 3:2. Look up to the barren heights and see.
눈을 들어
Is there any place where you have not been ravished?
근데 거기를 봤더니 어딜 가나 다 뭐가 있어요? 옳지 않은 행동을 하는 사람.
So when you look up and see, the Jeremiah saw all this chaos
너희는 예루살렘 거리로
and the
빨리
wickedness.
다니며 그 넓은 거리에서
Go up and down the streets of Jerusalem, look around and consider, search through her squares.
몇 사람이
If you can find but one person who deals honestly and seeks the truth, I will forgive this city.
울어주고 애통해하며 기도할 사람이 없는 거예요.
There's no one
이게 그때 당시 남방부다의
who is honest and truly seeks the truth.
기도하는 거예요. 어떻게 하나님을 이렇게 안 부르시죠?
There's no one who can cry and grieve for this city.
왜 내가 이런 걸 봅니까?
So chapter 1 is Habakkuk's prayer about it. How could I not cry? What is God doing now?
하나님 지금 뭐 하고 계세요? 왜
And
제가
there are
이런
times in our
걸
lives when we ask these questions. What on earth is God doing? I'm praying, God.
이런 질문을 우리도 해요.
And we ask this kind of questions
이
as well.
질문은요. 하나님 지금 뭐 하세요? 이거는 단순한 호기심에서 나오는 질문이 아니에요.
So this is not simply intellectual curiosity. It's an important question of our life.
이것에 대한 하나님의 대답이 뭐였을까요?
And the answer, God's answer to this is this.
아주 기가 찹니다. 뭐라고 하시나 볼게요.
Let's look at Habakkuk 1:5.
너희는 여러 나라를
Look at the nations and watch
놀라고
and be utterly amazed.
너희가
For I'm going to do something in your days
뭔가를
that you would not believe,
누가 너희에게
even if you are
말할지라도
told.
너희가 믿지 못할 만한 일을 할 거예요. 아주 놀랄 만한 일을 일으키겠다고 하십니다.
God promised to do something very surprising.
6절에 보니까 내가
In verse 6,
갈대아 사람을 일으킬
I
거다.
am rising up the Babylonians.
여러분 갈대아 사람이 누군지 아십니까? 영어 성경에 보니까 뭐라고 말이죠?
These Chaldean, people of Chaldean,
바벨로니안
they are Babylonians.
바벨론 사람.
So these Chaldean appearing here are Babylonians.
질문에 대답하시기를 내가 바벨론을 일으킬
So God's answer was that the God will raise Babylonians. That means God will use Babylonian people
너를 가르치기 위해서
to teach you.
하나님이 말씀하십니다.
That's what God said.
바벨론이 누구입니까?
Who's Babylon?
악한 것의
Is
대명사가
the essence of evil in the Bible is Babylon.
배신하는 정신을 가득
The
나타내는
Babylon represents the spirit of betrayer of God. How will you react to this story? I will raise up Babylon to rule the Judea.
너한테 답을 줄 거야.
I'll use the evil to rule the righteous.
하박국이 뭐라고 반응했을까요?
How did Habakkuk react?
이렇게 반응했습니다. 선지자가 이르되
On the chapter 1:12, Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, the Holy One?
사망에 이르지.
We shall not die.
하박국이 하나님을 그냥 하나님이라고 안 해요. 나의 거룩한 하나님, 나의 하나님.
The Habakkuk
이게 뭐냐면
calls God my holy God.
관계가 있잖아요. 나 하나님이랑 친하잖아요.
We have relationship, right? God, we're close.
우리를 멸망시키실 분이 아니죠.
And I know that God will not let us die.
이야기를 던지고 있어요.
And he threw the story of the faith to God.
13절에
Verse 13,
하나님은 눈이 정결하신
you are the purer eyes than to behold evil and cannot look on wickedness. Why do you look on those who deal treacherously and hold your tongue when the wicked divorce?
하나님 잘 알거든요. 우리 함부로 멸망시키실
I know God well. God is not the one who will just perish us like that.
더러운 거 차마 못 보시고
God has pure eyes. He's the one who sees no evil.
저렇게 거짓된
But how does he use an unclean ruler?
저 악인을 더러 의로운 사람을 삼킨다고 하십니까?
How are you going to use that stranger, the wicked,
가능한 일입니다.
to rule the righteous?
악인을 이용해서 의로운 사람을
How can that happen, God? That's what Habakkuk's asking.
내가 어려움을
Habakkuk's surprise is not that judgment will come. It's not that the judgment will come, but he is just surprised. How could you use those wicked Babylonians to teach and rule us, which Habakkuk think is the righteous? Even if the Judea fell now, even if people of Judah now abandon the law, this is not right.
이렇게 하박국의 질문이 끝나요. 자, 여러분 질문이 끝났습니다.
And the Habakkuk's question ends like
여러분의
that.
삶에 아주 중요한 질문들을 하나님께 던졌습니다.
So now what should
이제
happen?
어떻게 해야 돼요? 들어야죠.
When the question's over, you should listen, right?
들어야죠.
You should listen to the reply.
하박국이 이렇게 했어요. 내가 내
Habakkuk
사수하는 곳에 서며
chapter 2 verse 1, I will stand at my watch station myself on the ramparts.
나의 질문에
I will look to
대하여
see
어떻게
what he will
대답하실지
say to me and what answer I'm giving to this complaint.
파수꾼들이
So there's this high place.
올라가서 여기에서 하박국이 섰어요.
That means you can see and watch everywhere. The Habakkuk went up there.
내가 질문을 던졌습니다.
And Habakkuk asked the question, and he is waiting to listen to God's answer.
라고 하박국이 올라갔어요. 여러분, 우리의 인생은 복잡합니까?
So our lives are complicated, right?
항상 원인과 결과가 있다고 말하지만
People say there are cause and the results,
왜 이런 결과가 일어났는지 모를 만한 일들이 너무나 많이
but there are things which is just not understandable in our life.
수수께끼 같은 우리의 인생에서 우리의 삶에서
So what is needed for such an ununderstandable life is Habakkuk's relationship with God.
하박국은 이 질문을 하나님한테 던졌어요.
So Habakkuk asked these questions to God.
이 질문을 하나님께 던졌어요. 그리고
They're difficult to ask,
라고 하고
but
올라갔습니다.
he asked and he's waiting to hear the answer.
우리가 갖고 있느냐로 그
So God does not abandon the person who asks question because of what question he
이런
has.
거 없어요. 참 좋으신 하나님.
A good God
어리석은 우리의 모든 질문을
does not turn away from the question or rebuke it.
그 질문들을 통해서 더 깊은
It is because God leads us to a deeper conversation through such questions and ultimately let us know and experience what we need most.
질문하는 것은 중요해요.
So therefore it is important to ask questions. But more important is who do we ask questions?
그래요. 맞아요. 하나님은 사람을 통해 일하십니다.
So God works through people, right?
그 질문을 기다리다가 사람을 통해서
But
대답을 듣는 것.
there is a huge difference between asking God questions first and waiting for answers from people and asking people questions from the beginning and seeking the answers.
시간에 궁금한 것이 생겼어요.
So it was Daniel's class when I was in college,
10장 1절이
and I had a question. So Daniel 1:21 and 10:1 conflicts with each other.
고레스 왕 원년까지.
So those two verses
근데 10장 1절에
look like it's conflicting to me.
3년에 이렇게 시작해요. 그 둘이 말이 안 맞는 거예요.
So it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me.
1장 21절이랑 10장 1절이 이게 충돌되는
So,
것 같습니다.
So I asked a question, a professor a question about this, and the professor looked at me with a bright face, and he said it was a question that should be asked.
이렇게 하는 거예요. 그러니까 저도 막 기분이 좋아진
So I
거예요.
felt good.
교수님이 이정철군
But however, the professor said, 정철, you should research and let everyone know the answer next week.
그럼 너가 준비해서 발표해.
So you look for the answer
도서관이랑 별로 안 친한 사람인데.
and present the answer to everybody. That's what the professor said.
그리고 제가 읽을 수 있는 모든 주석을 다.
So I searched through every commentary I could read to find the answer at the library.
실험했던 시간.
And it was time when I wrestled alone.
질문에 대한 내용과 답을
And even now,
10여 년이 지났지만
I have not forgotten those questions and the answers, even though it was about 10 plus years ago.
제가 하나님께 물었고 제가 하나님으로부터 답을 얻으려고 했기 때문에.
And that's because I asked these questions to God and I tried to get the answers from the God.
이해되지 않은 부분들도 있어요. 근데 여러분 혹시 분명히 내가 이거 그때 답을 찾았었는데 내가 이거 분명히 들었었는데 하지만
And
지금 기억이 안 나는
there are things, you know, that you listened, you learned, and you had the answers, but sometimes you forget about it, right? If you forget easily, that means you found the answer easily.
사람을 통해서 너무 쉽게 얻었기 때문에 인간을 의지했던 답은 우리에게 아무런 영향력이 없습니다.
So the answers from the human,
직접 고민하고
you know, rely on human being. It doesn't really mean to us
그것이
so much.
우리의 삶의 변화를 줍니다.
But when you ask God questions and get the answer from Him, then that can change your life.
복잡한 수수께끼 같은 우리의 인생에서 믿음이 필요한 이유.
And that's why we need the faith in our complicated life. And this is the secret of the benefit millions of people have enjoyed reading Habakkuk for 2,500 years.
그리고 이제 하나님이
And we can have the same question as Habakkuk. Why is this happening in my life?
하나님 뭐라 그러셨냐면
And the God's answer
내가 이제 대답할
to
거야.
Habakkuk appears in chapter 2.
묵시를 기록하여 내가 말하는
Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tables,
달려가면서
tablets,
읽을 수 있게 하라.
that he may run who reads it.
이렇게 하셨을까? 왜 이렇게 하셨을까요?
Why did he say that?
너만 읽는 거 아니야. 예.
And it's saying, it's not just for you, Habakkuk.
다 알아야 되는 답이야.
This is the answer for the whole human being. Everyone needs to know the answers.
답이야. 왜 내게 이런 일이 생깁니까? 라고 질문하는 사람들이 너무나 많이
There are many people who are asking the same question. Why is this happening to me?
이 묵시는 내가 너에게 주는 것은 정한 때가 있나니
For the vision is yet for an appointed time. At the end, it will speak, and it will not lie. Through it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry.
하박국의 마음을 위로해주고 확신을 주려고 하는지 알 수 있어요.
So you can see how much God is trying to give Habakkuk a certainty.
이루어져. 반드시 이루어져.
God is saying it will definitely come true.
더딜지라도
Even though it may be slow, but wait, it will definitely come true when it's time. So what exactly going to happen?
바벨론으로 우리를 다스리는 것이 말이 되나요라는 질문에
So God is trying to answer Habakkuk's question. Does it make sense to try to rule us with Babylon? He promises that it will surely be answered.
나라를 어떻게 다스리실 것인가에 대한 이야기.
And now God tells us how He intends to deal with Babylon.
받을 것에 대한 이야기. 하나님 바벨론 통해 일하시는 것 전 이해할 수 없습니다. 이제
So
말씀해 주세요.
this is about the Babylon. The God's word is about the curse that the Babylon will receive.
단어가 뭐냐면 이거예요. 다 함께 읽어볼까요? 시작.
So this appears the most in Habakkuk, "Woe to him."
9절,
It appears in verse 6, 9, 12, 15, 19.
화가 있을 것이다라고 말합니다.
And God is saying the woe to Babylon.
옳지 않은 방법으로 자신의 영광을
So there's a curse who piles up the stolen goods and make himself wealthy, who builds his house by unjust gain, who tempts his neighbors to sin, who worships idol, all points to Babylon. God is saying there will be woes to them.
4절에
But let's read the verse 4 again.
그의 마음은 교만하며
Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him,
의인은
but the just shall live by his faith.
여기서 말하는 그가 누굴까요? 그의 마음은 교만하며
So
하박국 2장 다
in here, who is he?
그럼
The he is the Babylon.
바벨론. 여러분 이상하지 않습니까?
Isn't this strange?
악인에 대한 이야기를 하시려면 그냥 바벨론에 대한
It's the whole second chapter is the story of Babylon. Then God only needs to talk about the wicked, right?
바벨론의 마음은 교만하다라고 말씀하시면 됩니다. 그런데
He can say the heart of Babylon is arrogant and be done with it.
그 믿음으로 말미암아
But God also speaks of the righteous.
의인을 이야기했습니까?
Why did God tell the story of the righteous as well, not just the wicked?
들으라는 얘기예요.
So that means that not only Babylon should listen, but the Habakkuk and Jewish people should listen as well.
2장 후반부에 등장하는 바벨론의 멸망으로 기뻐할 생각하지 마.
So nor should they rejoice over the fall of Babylon, which appears in the second half of the chapter 2.
들어야 돼.
The story about faith now is the story that the people of Judea needs to hear.
유다라는 나라가
So the Habakkuk thought he was more righteous than Babylon. The country of Judah was thought to be more righteous than Babylon. So the Habakkuk couldn't understand how God was teaching and guiding the people of Judah through Babylon. So he felt very unfair.
제 아이들만 봐도
So when I see people in life, the hardest thing is to be unfair. We don't have to go far. If I just look at my children, the voices are loudest when they feel unfair.
누구라면
And even for me, it's hard to tolerate when I get treated unfairly.
누구랄 때 잠못자야. 정말 눈물 없는 사람도
Even people without tears shed tears when they felt unfair.
중에 정말 눈물이 없는 사람이 있습니다.
There's a person, close person I know, who doesn't cry.
언제요?
But that person, I saw him crying when he was treated unfairly.
유다는 억울해요.
So Judah's is unfair position.
하나님 지금 뭐라고 말씀하시는 거냐면, 야, 이 땅이
The God's saying,
아닌 자가 어디
who is not a sinner on this earth?
스스로 의롭다고
Do you consider yourself righteous now?
스스로를 의롭게
Do you think your service justifies you? Do you think your intercession justifies you?
인간은 모두 의롭지
No,
않아.
not all humans are righteous.
받게 된 거, 너가 이루어
That you have been chosen, your salvation is not determined by what you have accomplished or by anything else. That's what he's saying.
믿음으로 살아가는
The righteous do not live by their own righteousness, but only by faith.
무엇이 되었든지
So whatever we have achieved, it could be culture, ideology, knowledge, whatever it is,
또 증거 삼을 수 없어요.
that itself doesn't tell us our righteousness.
의롭습니까? 제가 방문을 잘하면 의로운
If I preach well, am I righteous? If I visit other people, am I righteous?
제가 목사라는
I cannot be righteous with what I did.
무엇이든지
And I cannot be righteous just because I'm a pastor.
하나님이
For anything to be truly meaningful, God must be present in
우리의
it.
삶의 의미는
It must all come from God.
비로소 찾게 되는 것입니다. 삶의 수수께끼는요. 그래서 믿음으로 해결될 수도 있어요.
So the questions of life can be solved with the faith.
그 안에 자리 잡고 싶어.
So God is now getting more and more into the center of Habakkuk's thoughts. He wants to settle in it. Faith, not you. Live by God.
이것을 깨달았어요.
And Habakkuk realized this.
어떻게 이 음성을 가슴 깊이 새길 수 있었을까?
And Habakkuk engraved this voice deeply in his heart. How could he do that?
어디서든지 오는 대답을 들으려고 했어요.
And it's because he has been waiting and waiting to hear this word.
오직 여호와는 그 성전에 계신
Chapter 2, verse 20, But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him.
하나님께 대답을 듣고 이 대답을 이 안에서 소화시키는 시간이 갖는 거예요.
And Habakkuk listened
3장에
to the answers.
완전히
And
새로운
he needed some time to
뿅 하고 나타납니다.
think about it.
그 내용을 저희가 좀 다음 주에 다루려고 해요.
And in Habakkuk chapter 3, you know, there are more things happening and we're going to talk about it next week.
그거는 저희가 다음 주에 다루겠습니다. 여러분, 우리의 인생은요. 참 복잡해요.
So our life is mysterious.
많아요.
It's complicated.
근데 그런 수수께끼를 같은 인생 속에서
And with too many questions,
오늘 우리가 잠깐 나누어
we cannot get the answers we like.
원하는 답을 제깍제깍 들을 수는 없지만
And we cannot get the answers we
우리가
need.
정말 하나님께 질문한다면
But if we ask questions to God,
들을 수 있을 거예요.
we'll be able to get the answer.
믿음으로 살아가는 과정,
And that is,
방법.
it is to live a life of
우리는 비로소
faith.
변화하는 삶을 살아갈 수 있을 거예요.
And when we have this life, our life can be changed.
우리 마음에 잘
And as the year comes to a close, I hope this precious truth will be a blessing alive in our hearts.